When was it?
April 7th.
April. April 17th to be exact. When the transplant happened, it was the first time I got to meet the judge, as I like to call him. I know you guys call him more informally, but I like to call him the judge. It's cool to say I know a judge. When I first met him, it struck you what a wonderful individual he is, but more importantly, it struck a chord with what a community member is all about, and what it means to be Osek B'Tzarchei Tzibor, involved in the needs of a community. And really, to his credit and to Gary Ambrose's credit, who we'll talk about a little bit, they really pushed us to do something like this and to bring Renewal to the Lower East Side and to educate the Lower East Side more and more about what kidney donation is, what the whole process is really all about. And so Judge Shulman is going to get up here, he's going to speak, share his side of the story, which is a fascinating story, and then he will introduce Meira, and after that, we will proceed with the program. So without further ado, the judge.
Honored community rabbis of Renewal, appreciated donors and their families, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Before I go into my remarks, because my partner Gary wanted to make sure that we all express our gratitude to certain people who made this amazing event happen. Of course, and you'll learn more about Renewal as we go through the program. Thank you, Renewal, for coming to the Lower East Side. Thank you for all the shuls and organizations of Lower East Side that put out the word, the flyers. Thank you to the Ambrose and Shulman families that were part of this process. Thank you to Hondo Abramowitz, Aaron Goldman, Betsy Jacobson, and all the different staff members of the different organizations and shuls that got the word out for this event. To fully gauge how priceless altruistic kidney donation is, let us look at the Torah obligation of kibbud avim. Emotionally, this mitzvah is seemingly a natural expression of our profound gratitude to our parents in partnership with God for giving us the greatest present, i.e., our very presence, or our lives. Paraphrasing the refrain from the Haggadah's Dayenu song, were this the only act our parents ever did for us, we could never do enough to ever repay our parents for bringing us into the world. Halakhically, our obligation to honor our parents for giving us life can never be discharged, nor can we ever invoke the doctrine of impossibility of performance. Why? Because our parents gave us the greatest present. In a similar vein, we Jews are always giving presents or gifts. Besides performing ritual mitzvos, we must also perform interpersonal mitzvos, which in substantial part requires us to be givers, to give more charity, to do more chesed, to be more responsive to the never-ending appeals for money, goods, and services, both within and without the Jewish communities where we reside and throughout the world. Against this backdrop, we are mindful of the famous Mishnah in Sanhedrin, which states that when one saves a life, it is considered as if that person saved a world. But let's be frank. Most of us do not wake up in the morning and decide to give a kidney to a total stranger. Thus, I stand here overwhelmed with profound gratitude to God and to Avraham Eliezer Friedman, an authentic Torah-observant IT professional from North Miami Beach, and a 32-year-old father of 4 beautiful children who, through the amazing Renewal organization, altruistically donated his kidney to a total stranger, but no stranger to me, my youngest and beautiful daughter, Meira. How could he ever be repaid for giving this greatest present and saving Meira's world? Avram Eliezer, whose wonderful grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Jack Friedman, Tavadu L'chaim Tovim, have joined us this morning. good friends, Rabbi Gary Ambrose and Hannah Baylor Friedman, as well as Aviva Keller-Ney, the daughter of good friends Kenny and Eileen Keller, are members of a unique league of heroes. These unassuming heroes never took their gift of life for granted, and because they were collectively grateful for their own lives and good health, they answered to an inner calling to fulfill an exceedingly rare act of chesed by donating a kidney and giving the greatest present of life to another. My friends, in raising the awareness of the important mitzvah of altruistic kidney donation, I want to briefly share what it's like for family members of a potential recipient. Parenthetically, as supportive and empathetic a family may be to the plight of a loved one in need of a kidney to survive and renew the life that person had before suffering end-stage renal failure, no one can really know what it is like for a potential recipient to deal with this systemic and potentially fatal medical condition at every waking moment. God willing, Meira will give you a brief take of her world before her miracle occurred on April 17, 2018. Despite having Amunas Hashem, being mispalel and daily reciting Tehillim, for us Shulmans, it was a time of fear, helplessness, and frustration. Like the motto of the 19th century Alexander Dumas' Three Musketeers, we were all for one and one for all in being with and for Meira during her constant doctor visits, emergency room runs, hospitalizations, and daily dialysis treatments. But Meira needed much more than family support. At this juncture, I want to give a shout out thanking our amazing Lower East Side Hatzalah volunteers. Some who are here who responded whenever we called, regardless of the day or hour, and Baruch Hashem avoided a number of close calls. Several years ago, Meira was listed in the National Organ Registry and was ostensibly placed high up on the list at Mount Sinai Medical Center and Johns Hopkins Hospital. Nonetheless, the days, weeks, months, and years passed as we waited 24/7 for that telephone call to tell us of a potential cadaver donor. There were calls few and far between, which temporarily raised our hopes. And I must confess that while I prayed to Hashem to deliver a refuah, I just could not bring myself to wish someone would die so that my daughter could get a kidney. I recently read a blog post and learned that there are over 100,000 patients awaiting a kidney transplant in the United States. Over 16,000 patients a year receive a donation, about 5,500 from living donors and the rest from cadavers. Those are startling statistics. There had to be a better way. A little more than a year ago, Meira's nephrologist urged us to consider turning to Renewal for help. We filed an application and made an appointment in January of 2018. Meira and I met with transplant recipient coordinator Vipke Gutman and various Renewal rabbis, including the executive director, Rabbi Chaim Steinmetz. Renewal discussed how we, Meira's family, could do our hishtadlus to get the word out to the world that Meira needed a kidney. And this appears to be the roadmap for a donor campaign all potential recipients should follow to some degree. During that first meeting, Mrs. Gutman talked about a swap arrangement. Would I or a family member, obviously no matches for Meira, be willing to register and donate a kidney to a total stranger, which would put Meira high up on the national registry? Sure, there was no question that if I was a match, I would have given Meira a kidney. However, unlike the hero donors here this morning, donating a kidney per se was never on my bucket list of things to accomplish during my lifetime. Yet, I had to let potential donors know that I was willing to do for others what I wanted them to do for Meira, and I agreed to test for a swap. Back to our kidney donation campaign. Meira was adamant about maintaining her privacy. Thus, I had to draft an appeal letter that would appeal to Jews around the world to want to donate their kidney to an anonymous 28-year-old. How were they able to pull this off? I turned to Rebbetzin Sheila Feinstein, Zefrona Levracha, who reviewed and revised my letter. The Rebbetzin also arranged to have the letter typed on the letterhead of the Masista of Staten Island, Rosh Yeshiva Harav Ruven Feinstein Shlita, and two Gedolei Hador, Harav David Feinstein Shlita, and Harav Ruvain signed their names in support of our campaign. Renewal then took this letter and created a copy-ready flyer with contact information to be disseminated on the internet and in various print media. Rabbi Pinchas Lipschitz, editor and publisher of the popular Yated Ne'eman, donated a full page to print this flyer. Hamodia and other Jewish newspapers donated ad space. And through the assistance of our extended family, friends, and acquaintances, synagogues and Jewish organization websites throughout the United States, Canada, and Israel posted our renewal appeal letter. Rabbis in different communities spoke about our anonymous appeal from their pulpits, including the renowned Rabbi Kellemer of the Young Israel, West Hempstead. I have been informed that as a result of this campaign, over 1,000 individuals registered to be tested. Almost all of them are unknown to us. We did learn that a handful of these potential donors included extended family members, friends and neighbors here on the Lower East Side, the amazing Hanabela Friedman, and a recent donor who joined us this morning with her family, and her daughter Abigail. The outpouring of chesed was truly overwhelming for me and us. But I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Me'ira's donor did not respond to our campaign and probably never saw our letter. He was already registered with Renewal as a potential donor for several years. Well, God runs the world. By merely registering with Renewal last January, it set into motion a Purim story-like process for Me'ira to find her perfect match with Avram Eliezer. And it was win-win campaign overall because the amazing Renewal organization gained many new potential donor registrants. On Tuesday morning, April 17, 2018, sometime before 7:30 a.m., I, Adina, Me'ira's sister, and Me'ira were in the Mount Sinai preoperative holding area. There were numerous surgeons, anesthesiologists, nurses, and other support staff dealing with many patients waiting to be wheeled to their respective operating theaters. Me'ira half-jokingly quipped, "Hey, Dad, look around and see if you can spot my donor." I looked at her incredulously and rhetorically questioned, "Are you serious?" Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a young person in front of us on a gurney wearing a big velvet yarmulke and a big smile, being wheeled out of the holding area. Rabbi Menachem Friedman, a renewal coordinator, came over and advised the three of us that the young man was Me'ira's donor. Right before Me'ira was wheeled out, the rabbi played an unedited version of a video he recorded on his cell phone of Avram Eliezer giving words of chizuk and bracha to the soon-to-be anonymous recipient. My friends, watching this video may not have been as spiritually uplifting as being at the Kotel reciting the Shemona Esrei at Basikin, but it came pretty close. Thank you, Renewal, for sponsoring this awareness program and brunch and publicly acknowledging our donor heroes. And thank you for allowing me to share our family story. Perhaps one of you will be inspired to give the greatest present, which with God's help and the transplant surgical team will enable a potential recipient to survive and experience a life of renewal, a life of health, simcha, and nachas. In performing this extraordinary act of chesed, as Harav Ruvain concluded in our renewal appeal letter, you will be zocheh to all of the brachas of the Torah. Thank you. Okay, I'm jumping into the personal MC. And now it's a big success. And bracha to call him up upon my Me'ira to say a few words.
you know me. Firstly, thank you all for coming out today. I have to start with just thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Renewal, and Mr. Avram Eliezer Friedman that I'm actually standing here today. As my father said when we wrote the letter, I wanted to stay anonymous. I'm not one to usually share my private information, but if I can change one person's mind today to hopefully, join this amazing organization and save someone else's life, then I'm willing to take one for the team. So, as someone in end-stage renal failure, it is quite a very dark and not a very happy experience. Like any good machine that has many working parts, if one screw is out of place, it's going to affect the whole. So while your kidneys are the ones that are failing, like I said, it's going to affect everything else. So to just name a couple things, for starters, because the kidneys are what break down and filter our systems, you're going to notice quite fast that food and drinks and what they are made of, for example, like potassium, which can give you a heart attack, which I learned very fast also, that you cannot have these items. So bananas and orange juice are not the only things with potassium. So a lot of food groups are going to be out. So you're on a very strict diet, which I know I did not appreciate. Then physically, literally physically, you're also going to notice that oxygen is not being well placed in your system anymore, and going not a quarter of the block, you will be out of breath and you will think you ran a marathon. So you're not going to be walking much anymore either. Then the water weight, that's like the worst. I was sometimes carrying so much water, it was more than my 10-year-old niece, what she weighs, which is a little crazy, but yeah, so those are just a couple of the physical things that are going to happen, which are going to affect your life in a really big way. Then you now have dialysis. You get two options. Okay. You can either go to a clinic every other day, so that's about 4 times a week, be tied to a chair for about 4 to 5 hours. Then after that, you're so exhausted that you can sleep the night and the next day away. And by the time you wake up, you're back at the clinic. Or I chose a different version, which can maybe sound better, but it's really not that great either. I did it in my house. Every day I had to dedicate about 10 to 11 hours literally being connected to a machine in my room, which meant I was not going anywhere and there's no breaks. So I'd bring snacks, drinks, anything I thought I might possibly need, because like I said, you did not leave your dalet amos. You were stuck. So at this point, you find that your daily living is quite compared to someone who's in prison. You are a prisoner to your dialysis. You're a prisoner to your house, because you can't go that very far with a big machine, or if you have to go to a clinic. Although, like my father said, one for all for one, those few times a year that my whole family was a group effort, that they helped me move the machine, the supplies, and everything else, and I didn't help, obviously, because I couldn't. We got to go to my sister, but other than that, there was going nowhere. And then literally you learn that you are a prisoner to this disease and your physical body, and there is nothing you can do but hope and wait you get that phone call. And while my father is a much better person than me and could not imagine davening for the idea that you get that call, which means someone else's demise. When you're in my shoes, you can imagine it. You know, you wait for that phone call and hope every time your cell phone rings that as much as you love your friends and family, it's not them. It's hopefully someone calling to say, we have a possible donor for you. So while that sounds very sad and bad, and it was, I'm not going to lie, that's how I went to bed April 17th that morning for surgery. But when I woke up that evening, I don't think even I could have imagined what the difference was going to be. When I woke up, I had an adrenaline rush, or at least that's what I thought it was, till I realized that was just having energy again. As my family walked in, without, talking to each other, they all magically said, "You have color again," which I didn't quite understand till one of my sisters explained that my new normal had become a light blue tint, which I guess I was walking around so long, people forgot to be like, that's weird. When my friends came 2 days later, they all said, "You're back," which I guess for a minute I was like, what does that mean? Like, where'd I go? But I didn't mind, because that was a good thing. I was back. So I really didn't care what I was leaving behind at that point. Just a couple of weeks ago, I celebrated my 29th birthday, and I had a couple parties for myself. And to someone looking at it, they're like, it seems a little excessive considering it's not one of those landmark birthdays, not your 21st, not my 30th, which will be next year. But this year, I actually really got to celebrate it with friends, family, and really enjoying it. But even more than just me physically celebrating it, a personal thing for me was that the past few years, although my family always and my friends always celebrated my birthday, for me, it wasn't so much a celebration like a birthday should be, which is next year and you're older, things are greater and better. For me, it was more, I made it another year. I survived another year, because when you do have all those hospital visits and close calls, you're really not always sure you're going to. So, kind of in summary, as, we learn in Dayenu, it would have been enough. I need to, again, just thank Renewal and Aram Eliezer, because truthfully, it would have been enough if he just saved my life, even if I had to live in that not so great but new normal. Knowing that I would see tomorrow again was such a big deal for me. But you should know, as possible donors, the donors that are already in this room, and especially, like I said, Renewal Aram Eliezer, this is something I never even shared with him. I didn't share much with him, but you should know that you're not just saving someone's life, but in actuality, you are giving them back a life. He and all of you that do this or have done it, you have literally given these people, all of us, back our lives. And that is something we can never repay. But it's something we will always appreciate for the rest of our lives, and our families will appreciate this. So, like I said, just me, I hope that if I was someone in the crowd and my situation was reversed and I was going to hear from, like I did for my father, me, and you'll hear from Rabbi Gary Ambrose and I'm sure others, if that can just change someone's mind. I'm not, like my father said, you save a life, you save the world. I'm not saying because you saved me, you saved the world, but you saved my world. And me and all of us as recipients out there will really never be able to repay you, but our appreciation goes to the ends of the earth.
Wow. Mira is quite talented. That was all without notes. I'm very impressed. Mira's donor, Avram Eliezer Friedman, unfortunately couldn't make it to be here this morning. He really wanted to be here. He is watching on, Menachem is recording it for him to be watching it right now, so everybody, Menachem can pan the room. Everybody will say hi to Avram Eliezer. I also, at this time, I ask forgiveness in advance, but I want to ask his grandparents to stand up because they are wonderful, wonderful people, and they deserve recognition. When I started working at Renewal, I made it my mission. If I'm going to speak about the organization, I'm going to speak about kidney donation and the process. I really should know what motivates somebody to donate a kidney. Why would a person literally give a body part? I know it's saving another person's life, but there's got to be some motivating factor that causes a person to do this. So I made it my mission to go around and speak to as many donors as I possibly could. And I asked them all the exact same question. Why did you do it? So many of them did it altruistically, meaning they didn't know their recipient at all. Some even afterwards never met their recipient. And I said, why would you do something like this? And I was hoping to get, if I'm going to speak, I was hoping to get these wild, fantastic stories. You know, I was in a car accident, and I was miraculously saved, and then just then a flyer hit me on the face that said, somebody needs a kidney, and I said, that's how I'll say thanks. I didn't get any of those kind of stories. I really got very boring stories, but the truth is, boring is quite the wrong word. Because every single donor I asked had the exact same response. And it was very simple. Somebody needed it, and I could do it. So why not? It was such a simple yet profound statement of what motivated a person to do something so wonderful and so amazing. And there was another common denominator amongst just about every donor that I encountered. And that was that none of them wanted any recognition. None of them were doing it for fame or glory. None of them were doing it so that they could walk around and say, look, I'm a kidney donor. They don't want any of that. And in fact, we have to twist their arms just to get them to stand up and accept some recognition for what they've done, because they didn't do it for those reasons. And so, with that in mind, I'd like to call up some of our local donors over here, just so that they can get the recognition that I and we feel they deserve and they hate. And but I'm entitled. It's my job at Renewal, so they're going to have to accept it. So I want to call up here on the Lower East Side. We have a number of people that are connected with the Lower East Side. We just mentioned Avram Eliezer, who donated to Meira. We also have with us, we'll hear from Gary, but I'm going to ask Gary to come up and just so everybody can see him. But together with Gary, we have Aviva Ney. No, you've got to stand up. You can't just wave. And Chana Bela Friedman. They deserve a tremendous amount of recognition, and they all, after the program, are more than happy volunteering their services. But they're more than happy to anybody who has any private questions they want to ask about what it means to be a kidney donor. They're more than happy to talk to people individually, and we are very much grateful for that. We have with us here another kidney donor who happens to work for our organization. AJ Gindi, AJ, come on up. AJ Gindi is one of our community advocates, does a diligent effort in helping Renewal to grow and helping Renewal to be what it is and to be the success that, thank God, we've been fortunate enough to be. But I also want to recognize and to mention some of the other staff that we have here. Renewal is a pretty small organization. It's amazing that what can get accomplished when people are dedicated and devoted to what they do. We have here, standing over there, Mr. Mendy Reiner. Mendy is our founder. Mendy is the crazy guy who people laughed in his face when he said, no, an organization that people donate kidneys. And people said, what are you, crazy? Nobody's donating kidneys. And Mendy said, no, you'll see. And to his credit, they started 13 years ago with the goal of doing one kidney transplant. They figured if they can save one life, how amazing would that be? To save one life, it's awesome. That first year, they actually did 2 transplants. Fast forward to 2018, when Renewal was involved in 98 transplants. And I want to tell you that we are right now, for Renewal, we are making history within our own organization this month, because the month of February, God willing, by the end of the week, we will have done 16 transplants in the month of February. That's 16 transplants in 19 business days. In the month of February, it is an amazing testament to what happens when people start to learn more about kidney donation, and when they start to see individuals like we have here today, these kidney donors who are just such wonderful individuals. We have here also with us, we have Menachem Friedman, who is one of our program directors. We have David Shisha over there in the back, who is a jack of all trades, really does a lot of stuff. And Irit Lang, who does everything behind the scenes for Renewal, really helping the organization to run. Am I leaving out anybody? We have a lot of wonderful staff at Renewal. It's really a wonderful thing. So I'm going to turn the program over right now to AJ, who's going to speak a little bit about what Renewal is all about, and he will introduce Gary, and then after that we will follow up with a question-answer session about kidney donation itself. And I know just from hearing the conversation a little bit before that there are certain things that people think disqualify people from being kidney donors, and I'm going to show everybody that that's not necessarily the case.
Thank you, Rabbi Stern. My name is AJ Gindi, as he has mentioned. I'm an altruistic kidney donor. Gave my kidney to someone I did not know, did not meet that morning in the hospital. How strange is it to be a person like myself? In America last year, where there are 330 million people, roughly 200 people donated their kidneys altruistically. That's 1 in every 1.6 million people. 1 in every 1.6 million people did what I did, and what 3 other people in this room did. So you're sitting amongst, you have to go through 10 million people to get what you have in this room right here. So I am in awe of what I see. When the Honorable Judge, Mon Schulman, and Gary said we're going to get a nice room full of people, and we're going to have people come forward, they did a beautiful job. The room is full. You see some beautiful people here. Judge, I'm in awe of being in front of a judge. I have a few moving violations I want to take care of on the side if we can. Possible? No? Okay, the wrong judge. Okay, maybe you can refer me to somebody. We have a nice room of people. Renewal needs help on 2 ends. And this is what we were told. We're going to bring you donors, and we're going to bring you donors. So there are 2 different envelopes. There's this envelope that if you want to be a kidney donor, stand up if you got one of these envelopes. Nobody got one yet. Okay, that means you all have one of these envelopes. These are financial donors. So you have to pick one of these 2 before you walk out. You have 2 options. Some people take both options. You could be both a donor, a kidney donor, to swab and test and see what happens. Or you could be a financial donor. You say, I'm not exactly ready right now to donate my kidney, but to help save another life, for sure I will do that. That is the least I can do by coming to an event like this. Renewal needs the funds. It costs us about $18,900 to do a transplant. Yes, the transplant itself is covered by insurance, but all the workup, all the testing, the reimbursement of wages, the transportation, flying donors in, flying donors back, taking care of their families, all these expenses that are not covered by anybody are covered by us. When a donor comes to us, he knows or she knows that whatever you need will be taken care of by us. You want to go away for a week after the transplant, you need time to recuperate, we'll take care of it. You need a housekeeper while you are recuperating, we will take care of it. Your husband's going to be out of work for 2 weeks, we will take care of it. Whatever it is, there should not be 1 penny out of your pocket, or even a thought that you might lose something by donating a kidney. It's only a gain. you're gaining by saving someone's life. And as a donor myself, I can tell you this episode that I took part of back in April of February 2013 changed my life. And 20 of my friends followed what I did and changed their lives as well. I lost all of my friends after that, but the 20 that I got it the first time, I got those first 20, we did good for those first 20. When we come out and we speak, kidney donors come out and speak, we feel, honestly, we didn't do anything. When I walk around with some of my peers from the organization, and they introduce me, this guy is alive, altruistic, I'm alive, but they say I'm alive, but he's an altruistic kidney donor. And I said, what do you have to tell them that for? It's not a point, you know, it's not really, just play it down. I didn't do anything special. I donated my kidney. Okay, let me move on with life. There's nothing different that I can't do that anybody else in this room can't do. Everything you could drink, I could drink. Everything you can eat, I can eat. You want to go for a 20-mile run? I could run 20 miles. Not right now, but I could probably, if I wanted to, I could probably run 20 miles in a couple of years from now. I mean, there's things that, whatever you want to do, we can do. So people also wonder about age. You know, maybe I'm a little bit too old for this. I'm already 38 years old. You know, you hear people say these kind of things. We broke the record for the oldest altruistic kidney donor at 77 years old. 77 years old. Can you imagine that? Nothing better to do than when you're 77 years old. She was in Auschwitz. She survived the camps from Auschwitz. She as a child, 4 years old. She was put into a home. She survived. She said, you know, God saved my life. I have to give life to somebody else. Now, if you're a man, you have even more motivation to be a kidney donor. Why? Because we can't do what women do. Women give birth. They give life. This is our way of giving life. So they have an option. They have one edge over us. We've had women that were not able to have children. They donated their kidney, and God blessed them with children. We had women that were not married. They gave their kidney, and they got married. Matter of fact, we're the only ones that had two single people that went on a case. We sent both of them together on a case. They did not know who they were. They didn't know each other. We sent them because we had a transplant in Cleveland. We sent them, they met, and they got married. Two kidney donors. It's amazing when you become a kidney donor how your life will change forever. So when you support Renewal, in one way or the other, whether it's envelope number A and you want to donate your kidney, or B and you want to help us financially, either way, it's a major change in your life and the lives of those that you're going to be helping. What you just heard from the recipient, the words that she said, literally, and she was right, they are locked down, tied down to a room or a machine. And when you go into a dialysis center, and I've been there a few times, and you see an empty chair, not because the guy got the kidney, because he's no longer in this world. Unfortunately, the studies show after 5 years on a machine, 72% of the people are no longer alive. So yes, that machine is keeping them alive, but they know it's also could be the end of their life. So give us the power. Give us the strength. Show us that you're not only here for a good breakfast, which you got. Show us you're here for support, because we need the support to keep on doing what we're doing. We never thought we'd get to this point. Last week, we did 7 transplants in 1 week. I challenge anyone here to find any hospital that did 7 live transplants in 1 week. Not one hospital will do it. Not one hospital will achieve what we achieved at Renewal. The last one, which was on Friday, happened to be my son's mother-in-law's brother that got a kidney. So I feel close home to that one, but I feel close to all the transplants. When you're a donor and you see what people do, willing to give up a part of themselves to save someone's life, and you go back to a regular, normal life. So we ask for your support, both financially and both physically, in any way that you could do it, because we need it, and you're here and you see the product. This is real. These are not actors. Nobody's being paid to do what they're doing. We're doing it because we love each other, and we want to see each other survive. We want to give each other good beracha and good life. Amen. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce a very, very special person who really does not want to be in the limelight. And he told us before, I said, I don't want any kavod, I don't want any awards, I don't want any plaques, I really don't even want to speak. I said, it's very, very important because we're speaking at the Lower East Side, and you're from the Lower East Side. And we're honoring people that are from the Lower East Side or have a connection to the Lower East Side. So we want you to speak and encourage them. So I'd like to introduce Gary to come speak and say a few words on behalf of this beautiful donation that he himself has done. Thank you, Gary.
I don't know, if my ego didn't have enough problems until now. So when I was asked to speak, I saw the title of the lecture was going to be A Kidney Donor's Journey. I thought, ooh, I'm looking forward to hearing it myself. I wasn't sure what that exactly meant. And I'm thinking, what am I going to speak about? But then I realized you already wrote the script. Because since I gave the kidney, since I actually had the privilege of sharing one of my kidneys with someone else, I've been bombarded with questions, and a gazillion questions, but I realized they were the same questions over and over again. So I think what I'm going to do is answer those questions that many of you have asked. Question number one is, what the hell were you thinking? Question number two was, your wife let you do this? Unless they were talking to Reva, and then they said, you let him do this? Question number three was, did your children have anything to say about this? Question number four is, did you or do you now know your recipient? Question number five was, tell us about the process. Question number six is, do you now feel there's something missing? Question number seven is, did it hurt? We'll get back to that. And question number eight, which I think is the most important question, and there's actually two versions of the question. One version is, would you do this all over again, knowing what it was, what it entailed? And the other way of asking the same question, which a number have asked me, is, should I do this as well? So starting from the beginning, what were you thinking? Basically, I had two core Jewish emotions underlying the action. Number one was gratitude. I was reaching my 60th birthday, and I just felt grateful. You know, Baruch Hashem, without an ayin hara, I have a lot of things to be grateful about. And I said, what can I do to share that appreciation with someone else? The second core Jewish value that I had was guilt. I saw a Renewal ad. It was one of the ads, and it spoke about actually it spoke about a grandfather. It was an ad that spoke about a grandfather that said, you know, the children, the grandchildren. I'm thinking, oh my God, that's me. I'm reading about me. And just as we heard before, what Josh said, I felt the same thing. I said, oh no, I could do this. And I felt, in fact, a little guilty for not doing this. So that was the motivation. Now, as far as your wife letting you do it, that's another story. So it all started out when Reva innocently asked me, how would you like to celebrate your 60th birthday? Now, a normal person would have said something about a dinner or a weekend or getting the kids together. And I said, Reva, let me tell you how I would like to celebrate my 60th birthday. It did not go over well the first time around. But I do need to tell you, and I understand Renewal actually has a policy about this, there does have to be spousal support. You cannot do this without, if you're married, without your significant other, it just simply can't be done. And the bottom line here is, you know, the halachic construct of ishto kagufo, it wasn't I who gave a kidney, it was we who gave a kidney. And in all truth, I'm not sure at certain times of the process, I'm not sure which one of us had the harder time. So for sure, Reva went through a ton, easily as much as I did. She hates when I say this, but it's really true. It took a lot out of her to go through this process with me as well. And even though she was amazing throughout the whole process, and I'm not an easy person to live with when all is well, let alone in recovery and recuperation. But I will tell you, we had that tender moment where it was the first night in the hospital, and basically it involved staying 2 nights in a hospital, typically. So it was our first night, the first night Reva actually spent in the hospital with me, and I was in a bed on one side of the room, and she was in a cot on the other side of the room. And every 5 minutes, they have these things on your feet, because they're afraid of blood clots. So every 5 minutes, this thing goes off to put pressure on your feet, and it wakes up whoever's in the room every 5 minutes, and at one point, Reva's thinking to himself, my Eishes Chayil, all night long, how am I going to kill him? My children also reacted interestingly. They thought I was out of my mind, but that was not out of character, so that was normal. And they were not all of them were all that thrilled about it, but at one point, they heard a very touching story. And I think that story turned them over a little bit. There's a story we heard about another donor and a recipient, and I don't have all the exact details, but the bottom line is, it appears that the recipient was someone of means, and the donor was someone that was an altruistic donor who they didn't know each other beforehand, and the donor stepped forward, and it was somebody that needed a little financial help. And basically, there was such a gratitude that was given that my understanding is that the recipient, to this day, when it comes to a yontif, when it comes to a holiday, they take the kids of the donor and they take them out shopping and they get them clothes for them and get them ready for the hospital. And my kids are thinking, oh, wait a minute, there's something here. I'm going to get back to them in a moment. Even though I do have to tell you, my kids were wonderful throughout the process as well. They were doting. They should continue to be doting. It was wonderful. What was the process like? This is a very long story, well beyond what we have now. I just want to highlight a couple of things. It all started out with a phone call, an email and a phone call. And I actually reached out. I think my first phone call was Menachem Friedman. And he called me after my email, and I basically said, listen, I am old and I'm fat. Do you still want my kidney? And he was very diplomatic on the telephone, and he listens, and he asks my birth date, and he asks for my measurements and my weight. And he goes, no, you're not so old. Menachem, I don't know if you remember, and then I got a 5-minute lecture on body mass index. So I did. The truth is, I did lose about 30 pounds in preparation. I didn't have to. Even the nutritionist, when you go through this process, one of the things you do is it's a great physical. You go through a large battery of tests, and one of the people online is a nutritionist. And I was told the nutritionist is not necessary, and she doesn't always see everybody. And I was ready at the end of the day, and it was exhausting, and I was walking out, and they said, no, the nutritionist saw your chart, and she really wants to speak to you. I got it. The other part of the process that's really important is how amazing Renewal was throughout the process. From the beginning, throughout the process, through the surgery, through afterwards. They were incredible. And I could spend an hour telling you about them. They've been there, they've done this so many times. They know all of the details. Everything that has to be done. I'm going to give you just a couple of quick examples. My first day of testing, you have to go fasting. The blood work has to be done on an empty stomach. But then you're there for quite a few hours for other tests and a bunch of a process. Well, I'm looking around, I turn around, and there's one of Aaron Fetter, turns around, and he brings lunch. He brings me a bag of lunch because he knows I'm going to be hungry. Like, I didn't even think in those terms. On the day of actually, my understanding is Renewal also, as we heard a little bit from AJ, they provide a lot of support if it's helpful or it's necessary. So for example, if an individual has to lose a couple of weeks of work, they'll help make up some of the difference so it's not a financial burden. They will help if somebody has children and they need some daycare or childcare, they'll help with that. My understanding is they even help to some extent in the recuperation process, even though somebody has to tell Chaim Steinmetz, I missed that part of the memo, so we're going to have a little discussion afterwards. Rav David just walked in? But I'm going to interrupt myself for a couple of moments, and we'll come back to you.
Rabosai, if you recall from my remarks earlier, that the Rosh Yeshiva, Rav David Shlita, played a very important role in our campaign. The Rosh Yeshiva who cares about everybody in Klal Yisrael, who cares about everybody in the Lower East Side because we're all part of the Rosh Yeshiva's extended family. It's a big cover, it's good for all of us here to get divrei chizuk from the Rosh Yeshiva, Rav David Feinstein Shlita. It's a big chus that the Rosh Yeshiva has graced us with his presence.
I just want to make mention that the Rosh Yeshiva really was very instrumental when Renewal started. Renewal was looking towards Rabbanim to help us to navigate certainly within the world of halacha and hashkafa, and to figure out how to best do this. And Rav David really, the Rosh Hashiva Shlita was very, very instrumental in bringing Renewal to where it is today, and we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude and something that cannot be repaid. So a thank you on behalf of Renewal.
I'm sorry, I know you thought you were done with me. I'm back. A couple more things about that process also as far as Renewal was concerned. One of the things that was really very important, and I know she's not here because she would be very hesitant if I would be embarrassing her, but one of the donor advocates throughout the process, before, during, and after, also did something that it never would have occurred to me. She reached out to Riva. And it was incredibly helpful. Toby Fetter is who it is, so when she sees the video, if she sees it, she'll know a thank you. It was just incredibly sensitive and incredibly helpful to think about not just me, but to think about Riva as well. It was really wonderful. No, to answer that next question, I don't feel anything missing. People ask me which kidney it was, and I have to tell you in truth, I know they told me at the time, I don't remember, and I don't think it really matters. The more important question is, and it's a more involved question, and it gets to the very end, is did it hurt? Yeah, it hurt. It's surgery. This is not a walk in the park. It is surgery. Even though I have to tell you what I found in speaking to other donors is that there really is a range. Everybody takes this differently. So I spoke to, for example, Rabbi Leibowitz from the Five Towns. I listened to a shir about this from him at one point, and he spoke about a tremendous discomfort. Thinking, really? A tremendous discomfort? So I spoke to him. I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and I was not all that thrilled with his choice of words. But he said, in truth, he really didn't have that much pain. He said, in his case, Baruch Hashem, in his case, there wasn't. I will tell you the other extreme. Riva and I had the chance to walk up to a donor a few weeks ago at NYU on Shabbos, and I don't want to give you the wrong impression. She was thrilled about what she did, and she was extremely ecstatic about it. But she said she really underestimated how much it hurt. She underestimated the pain. It's a process. You're going through surgery, you're in the hospital for a couple of days, and it is what it is. But here's the most important thing. And I'm going to go out on a limb because there are no shills in the audience. I didn't ask them this question beforehand, but I'm going to ask them now because there were 3 other donors in the room. And here's the critical question. Where are you? AJ, knowing all what you went through, the process getting up to it, and pay attention, and Aviva, pay attention because we're coming back to you. All of whatever it was, the process, the nuisance, the discomfort, the recuperation, all of that. If you knew all of that going in ahead of time, and you had that knowledge, would you still have done what you did?
I think I can answer for everybody before we even get to that. We only regret one thing, and that's that we can't do it again.
That's truth. That's very true.
We can't do it again.
This was just a donation 2 months ago, just so we're clear. So we're not talking about a year or two ago. This is quite early on. Aviva. And even though it took you a little bit while till you could sleep on your tummy again. Okay, and that's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. For all of us, the bottom line is it's old news. I don't want to make it less than it was. It was something. But it's old news. It's done. We did it. Move on. What's next? It's fine. For the recipients, it's not old news. What Meira did before, what she said was unbelievable. There's very little I can add to that. You talk to recipients, and their lives, before they get a kidney, are very difficult. They're very challenging. The statistics for dialysis are not good. From she said it more. I can't add to it. When you are my own recipient, I did not know my recipient. That's also important. I had no idea who my recipient was. It's a relevant story for 2 moments. It's probably one of mine, so it's okay. I did not know my recipient. In fact, originally I was matched up with somebody who it turned out was a traditional Jew, not religious at all. And as far as I was concerned, that was absolutely fine. They actually asked me, and I said, 100%. I can't value one life over another. It turned out about 5 days before And I got a phone call from Rabbi Steinmetz, who said something happened and that recipient had a setback, which is not that unusual. It wasn't a permanent setback, but it would be a number of months before he was eligible for a kidney. And I asked, okay, what do I do? And they said, no, you're going forward. We have somebody right here now ready to take your kidney that's matched. Turned out he was religious. They told me that. After I gave the donation, I found out that he's somebody who's retired, Russian, a Georgian actually. He's retired. He's a Talmud Chacham. He sits and learns all day. That's what he does with his time. I'm thinking, oh my God, my kidney got an upgrade. Of course, when I share it with my family, my kids go, oh yeah, Abba got the guy who sits and learns all day. But that's the point. For the recipients, and that's where I was going. When I met him this week for the first time, actually, Reva and I went last week on Monday, we met him for the first time. And his opening words to me were, you gave me life. And that's the reality. It's not just quantity of life, it's quality of life. And, I don't know how much public knowledge it is yet. There's somebody here in our community who eventually, I'm sure, will come out, who is in need of a kidney. A while ago, I heard when Renewal does all of the Instagram stuff and the social media, I saw a video of somebody about to give a kidney, and she goes, just do it. That was her opening line. She goes, she's about to be wheeled in, she goes, just do it. I thought that was a little bit too much. This is a serious thing. You need to think about it a moment. But man, oh man, the schus, the privilege of having the schus of giving this to someone else. So perhaps it's too much to say just do it, but just think about it. Put it on your agenda and think about it long and hard. And there's so many people in need. Step up. It's an incredible, incredible privilege. Thank you so, so much. Oh, thank you, Rita J, for the picture taking. And happy birthday, Norman.
Thank you so much. That was, wow, quite impressive. So what I want to share with you a little bit, we'll open up for questions and answers, but before we get to that, just something that Gary touched on. I want to share with you what Renewal's philosophy is, because that's really what guides us in everything that we do. Renewal, it's funny, when Renewal first was started, the hospitals didn't want to work with us. Hospitals said, something doesn't sound right. I mean, an organization that's people are donating kidneys altruistically, it just doesn't make sense. And so it took a long time for us, and really the persistence of Mendy and of others at Renewal, of pushing through and getting the hospitals on board, to the point where we are today, where hospitals actually chase after us, and they ask us, can we work with you? And when the hospital asks us that, we tell them it's very simple. We have 2 criteria in order to work with us. Criteria number 1, you have to have a vast amount of experience doing transplants. If we're sending a donor and a recipient to your center, we need to know that you know what you're doing. But criteria number 2, which is perhaps even more important, is that you have to share the same philosophy as we do. And that is that donors need to be treated as the heroes that they are. That means that the proverbial red carpet needs to be rolled out for these donors. It's unacceptable, really it's unacceptable for anybody to have to wait hours and hours and hours for blood tests and for this test and for that test. But it's extra unacceptable for a kidney donor to have to do that. They're going into the hospital altruistically to give of themselves, a healthy person. We've got to do whatever we can. So I can't say that there's no waiting time. It is a hospital in the United States, so there is some waiting time for sure, but they do expedite the process for kidney donors, the hospitals that we work with. And that's something that's very important to us, is that the donors recognize that Renewal is there to hold their hand every step of the way. They're not doing this by themselves. They become part of our family, and we are there with them, whether it's on the day of testing, as Gary mentioned, or it's during the transplant. We sit there with me, I don't go anywhere close to the operating room. Nobody has to worry. I get squeamish at that kind of stuff. But we're there in the waiting room with the family, talking to them and going through as the day unfolds. And we're there with them beyond their transplant. And so we are with the donors and with the recipients, getting to know them, and they are a part of our family. And that's something that's very, very important to us. I want to open it up to questions if anybody wants to know anything about kidney donation. I know AJ mentioned before what the ages are, that the oldest donor we've ever had was 77 at the time of donation. Baruch Hashem, she's doing well. And as AJ mentioned, she is a child survivor, which to me, if ever there was a person in the history of the world that had a right to say, you know what, somebody else do something for this world, it would be a survivor. And yet, at 77 years young, Ruth is her name, Ruth decided, no, I still got a lot left to give, and she donated her kidney. We actually have this week, Emir Hashem, Bezos Hashem, we have a 73-year-old that is scheduled to donate. So age is very much just a number when it comes to kidney donation. Anybody have a question who wants to start us off? Yes? Very good question. What is the healing process like? So you heard a little bit from Gary, but one thing I want to caution, while it's great to speak to donors, you do have to keep in mind, and Gary alluded to this, every donor's experience is different. And therefore you cannot base it on any one particular donor, and therefore we go with averages. The average experience for a donor is that a donor is in the hospital for about 2 days, sometimes 3 days. And as Gary mentioned, there definitely is pain those first couple days. The doctors will prescribe pain medication after they leave the hospital. I'd say the majority of our donors never end up filling that prescription, though some definitely do. The typical recovery is about 2 to 3 weeks out of work. That's what we tell people to expect. And it depends on what a person's job is. If a person can work from their cell phone in their sweatpants on the couch, obviously they can get back a little bit quicker than if a person's doing heavy lifting construction work. It takes a bit longer. But on average, it's about 2 to 3 weeks. And as AJ mentioned, Renewal is there to help cover loss of wages for any donors during that period. Well, within reason. I mean, Renewal's budget is what it is. If Warren Buffett decided to donate a kidney, I don't know that we could help cover loss of wages there. But within reason, Renewal is definitely it. It's not just a matter of willing to cover loss of wages. Renewal wants to, because there's so many financial donors out there that say, I wish I could donate a kidney, but I can't. And so I give money instead. And that's my way of being mishtatef, of being a part in the mitzvah. And so when donors are sometimes hesitant to take money, we say, don't be hesitant. This is why the financial donors are doing it. They want to be a part of this. Let them be a part of it by sharing and accepting the money that they're giving. So that's typically what the recovery is like, 2 to 3 weeks out of work. What else?
What is the youngest?
The youngest age that to donate a kidney in the United States legally is 18 years old. However, I will tell you, and I mean no disrespect to any teenagers that are here today, Renewal's policy is that we don't feel that 18, 19, 20 is really the right age to make this kind of a life decision. And so Renewal doesn't start till 21, and even at 21, we're very hesitant to take from 21-year-olds. We prefer people to be a little bit older, a little bit more settled in life when making this kind of a life decision. This is not something, Renewal's philosophy is we don't guilt anybody into doing this. We don't believe that this is the right thing for every single person. We believe this is the right thing for many people out there that simply don't know it yet. They haven't been educated about what it entails. And that's what we try and do, and raise awareness and educate the population. So we do believe there are many more people out there for whom it is the right thing, but we also believe very firmly that it is not the right thing for a lot of people. And the truth is, we turn away a lot of donors, a lot of potential donors. People call us up and they want to donate, and we start to talk with them over the phone and start having a conversation, and we realize, you know what? I don't think this is the right thing for them. At their stage in life, at their situation, it's not the proper thing. And we turn them away and we say, you know, I don't think this is the right thing right now. Maybe come back to us 5 years from now. Let's figure it out. Because we don't need to have a donor for whom they're going to regret later on doing something like this. It's not something that is, again, we believe very much in a zero pressure approach. And in fact, as the donors here will tell you, Renewal gives many opportunities throughout the process to say, you sure you want to do this? You could back out at any point until the anesthesia sets in. You could back out at any point, and Renewal makes sure to let you know that you have every opportunity to back out. and the hospitals will make something up and tell the recipient that there is a medical thing that they're no longer eligible, whatever the case is. And that's why we're very strict that the donors and recipients shouldn't meet really beforehand, because we want the donor to not feel any pressure in doing this. So 18, 19, 20, not really the right mindset to be able to donate. Even 21, we've had a few 21-year-olds. Those are really the ones who call us when they're 18, and then 19, and then 20, and say, I want to do this by 21. We just want to get them off our hands. So we really prefer that they be a little bit more established in life, whatever age that may be. But on the other end, the sky's the limit. Age really is very much just a number. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions.
Please.
Okay, my first question is, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but, before a person gets to that stage where they would need a kidney transplant, they're obviously at renal failure or close to that, whatever, and had dialysis. What, as far as you understand, what causes this to happen to begin with, where the person ends up with renal failure and having to get a transplant?
So, I want to give a disclaimer. I am about as far away from a medical professional as anybody could possibly get. I decided to go for smicha instead of medical school, and I cannot answer anything with any authoritative answers. But what I will tell you is that people have a lot of different things that cause kidney failure. Some of it is genetics. Some of it is environmental. A lot of it has to do with the genetic predisposition, whether they're genetically predisposed to something like PKD, which is a genetic disorder that attacks the kidneys, or very often the number one cause of kidney failure in the United States is actually diabetes and high blood pressure. And so diabetes, high blood pressure definitely contributes because that taxes the kidneys. And the kidneys start to wear down and ultimately, unfortunately, in many cases begin to fail. Once a kidney fails, a person needs to either start dialysis or they need a kidney transplant. Even before that stage of kidney failure, the doctors don't let a person get to kidney failure. They let them get to just before kidney failure, where the numbers are pretty low and pretty bad, and they need to go on dialysis. And as I think Judge Schulman mentioned before, the survival rate on dialysis, unfortunately, is not good. For many, many people, dialysis is really a death sentence. After 5 years, just about 28% of people survive 5 years on dialysis. Talk about 10 years, it's about 10% of people that survive 10 years on dialysis. Dialysis is not by any means a cure for kidney failure. So a transplant, though, thank God, the success rates, Baruch Hashem, are so phenomenally good. And Kadosh Baruch Hu should help that they should continue to be wonderful, wonderful successes.
Okay, my next question.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I have two more.
We're going to close it after these questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my next question is, so the kidney transplants are taken from either a person that's alive, obviously, or from somebody that has passed away, has died.
Yeah.
Do you have any statistics as to how
So,
many,
yeah, it's a great question. So Renewal works with. Yeah, sorry, thank you. The question is that the question is, what is the difference between a kidney that is donated from a deceased donor versus a kidney that is donated from a living donor? And the statistics are pretty clear on this. A kidney that is received from a living donor is a much healthier option. The kidney on average lasts about double the amount of time. And not only that, but the kidney, one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen, I'm just going to take another 2 minutes because I think it's kadai. I was in a hospital with a patient for a transplant, obviously, and I was sitting in the waiting room with the husband, and we went into the recovery room, which for anybody who is familiar is a room where after surgery, there's a lot of beds in there, and people go there before they go to their private room. And I'm standing there with the husband. He wants to go in and see his wife, who just donated her kidney, and I tell him, we'll go in, but just keep in mind she's exhausted. She'll say hi, and then she's going to go to sleep. So we'll spend 2 minutes by her bed, and then we'll go back out, and we'll come back in an hour. So he says, no problem. We walk in, and he says hi to his wife. She sees he's okay. He sees she's okay. Baruch Hashem, everything is wonderful. And he's ready to leave, and I say, do me a favor, just come with me for a second. He says, where are we going? I said, please, just come with me. I take him 3 beds down, and I say, I don't mean to be gross, but do me a favor. Look, the patient was sleeping in bed. I said, look over the side of the bed and tell me what you see. He looks over the side of the bed, and he says, well, I see a catheter bag. I said, and what do you see in that catheter bag? And again, I apologize for being a little bit gross, but he said, I see urine. That catheter bag was filled with urine. I said, that's your wife's kidney at work. I said, this patient couldn't produce that amount of urine in days. And now here she is 2 hours after surgery, and the bag is full. I said, next time you say the bracha of Asher Yatzar after you leave the bathroom, this is what I want you to remember, that catheter bag. Because that's the bracha of what a kidney transplant is all about. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it in an amazing, amazing way, that the kidney works literally within seconds of being attached on the table, on the operating table. Within 2 seconds, they attach it, it turns pink, and it starts to produce urine right then and there, which is remarkable. Gary wanted to add something to that.
I just want to add something, and I'm going to wrap you up if you
Yes.
don't mind, also, because it's post time already. But I just wanted to say a couple of things. I know you were volunteered already, but Chana Bela and Aviva and AJ, wherever you are, we're all going to stick around a little bit. So if anybody has any questions, seriously, any questions at all of interest, and if you don't want to raise the questions now, I can speak for myself, but I think for everybody as well, call us up. Any questions you want to discuss, any step in the process, we are very happy. I need to say a special thank you to Josh, because he was the one who sat with my wife while I was having my kidney taken out.
Thank you. So, anybody who wants to get tested, we have, if anybody wants to get tested right here today, it's a simple swab of the cheek to get tested, but I do want to caution you that when getting tested, it's not like a bone marrow donation. When it comes to bone marrow, the organizations that do bone marrow donation want the entire world to get swabbed. The reason being, because the odds of matching are so close to impossible. When it comes to kidney donation, the way it works is that if you want to donate your kidney, there's almost a 100% chance that you will match somebody on our list. So if you want to get swabbed, by all means get swabbed. Don't do it just for the sake of doing it. But if you think this may be something you want to do, then I encourage you to get swabbed. It is not a commitment by getting swabbed. You're not signing off that you're giving a kidney. But I would say don't do it just for the sake of doing it. Do it if it's something you want to do. There's a table in the back where you can either make financial donations or you can get swabbed. I want to thank everybody very much for coming. And thank you to the Shulman and to the Ambrose families for all of their support.